when I first started, I wasn't charging enough at all. And I realized that really quickly. Like, if I'm going to pay big girl bills, I need to be charging people for the work that I'm doing. And I think what usually messes up entrepreneurs when they're first starting out, it's like,
what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Modern Day Unicorns. I am your host, Abby. Today we have, all my guests are special, so I'm going to allow her to introduce herself. Please, I want to welcome you, and I ask that you please introduce yourself. Tell us your name, where you're from, and a short description of what you do currently, and we'll unpack everything else.
Okay. Sounds like a plan. So, hey, everybody, I'm Nya B. I go by Nya B. My name is Nya B Peoples. That's the government. And I am the owner of Nya B Marketing, which is essentially a content creation agency that focuses mainly on podcasting.
That's amazing. Okay, great. Say it again.
I was going to say I'm a nomad, so I'm from many places.
That's okay. That's good. So we're go ahead and unpack that, because technically I'm a digital nomad as well. So okay, where are you from? Go ahead, break that down for us.
Born in Maryland, only spent about 2-3 years of my life there. Moved to Michigan, spent quite a few years there, and then the other part of my life in Florida. So I always am like, do I say where I was born? Do I say where I actually grew up? Yeah.
Okay, you want mine?
Yes, please.
When people ask me where I'm from, I just say the East Coast, right? Because I was born in New Jersey, raised in Georgia, went to school in North Carolina, lived in the Maryland, D.C. area for a time. But then I always throw in the fact that my mother's British. So I spent a couple of years in England as well. So I'm just like, what you want, the long? Do you want to know where I came from, the last place before I was actually here? Or do you want the story?
I love that. Okay, Miss, got some British blood in you?
Yeah. I got dual citizenship and everything.
That's what's up.
And the last part is I live in the UAE. I live in Abu Dhabi right now. I've been here for the past 5 years. So, we make it happen.
Yes. And you be popping up in the U.S. all the time. I see you.
If you say so. I'm happy that it appears that way. That's great. Because them flights is not where it's at. Okay. So you told us that you have a marketing agency and you focus primarily on podcasting. I would be interested to know kind of your back history, be it education or be it former employment that led you to this particular place where you're at right now.
It's funny because my undergrad degree is in political science and PR. I am a diehard Rattler. I went to undergrad at FAMU. And after undergrad, I went to grad school for marketing. And originally I thought that I was going to just mainly be in politics, but do all of the marketing, PR for campaigns and whatnot. But that later turned into just a passion for, at the time, the campaign that was going on was with Trump and for First Lady. Why am I drawing a blank?
Hillary Clinton?
Yes, Hillary Clinton. And at the time, I was like, man, I applied to work with her. And at the time, Karen Civil actually got that job. But following Karen Civil's career, I'm like, okay, she's been in podcasting. She's just all over as far as the type of work that she does. And I was interested in the podcast space because of just kind of following her journey and watching some of my favorite, one of my favorite podcasters and radio hosts is Charlamagne the God. So I was like, I want to start a podcast. This is something I have to do. So ended up starting a podcast and realized just how much work went into podcasting. I had 2 co-hosts and I did all of the editing, majority of the producing. So learned really quickly how to edit and whatnot, and then posted on social media. Friends started asking me yo, how did you do that? What are you doing? And then I started doing it for other people. And yeah, but kind of the rest is history.
So you answered my next question, which is great. Talking about who or what sparked your interest in your career, your talent, your side hustle, and to know that it was a quote unquote missed opportunity within politics that led you, and which I think is always great for us to understand that the things that we have interest in, to find the person that is doing what you're doing. And instead of being a hater, like look look to see what they're into, because you literally never know what it can uncover in you or in, so that's a great spin on, because most people would just be upset that they didn't get what they quote unquote wanted.
Right, right.
And so I
For
love
sure.
that. So with that being said, what helped you decide to put your all in all? Because as we all well know, entrepreneurship is not easy. It's difficult, right? So I'd be interested to know that, are you full-time entrepreneur? Do you have another job or another couple streams of income? Like, are you doing this full-time, or what? How are you maintaining this?
Full-time entrepreneur. It's funny because everybody looked at me crazy when I first did. I quit my first job out of grad school and started my business. Um, Cold turkey. My parents were like, "What? What are you doing? You have bills to pay." And it was crazy because once I quit, I moved to Atlanta with my husband. Um, and yeah, the rest kind of it was rocky. Like at first, we had like a few clients out of Atlanta, and I learned really quickly that Atlanta is expensive and it's not one of those places that you want to just quit your job and move to. But I did that and ended up getting like a temp agency job as a receptionist at a ad agency, and worked there for like 6 or 7 months. And then I actually found out that I was pregnant with my first son, and I was like, I'm not staying here. They're not allowing me to move up. They had me working on projects that they were paying me on a receptionist salary. So I was doing stuff that a strategist would do, but was getting paid for a receptionist job. It's just nuts. So I quit and then went back full time into entrepreneurship and never looked back.
So
And that was like a few years ago. So it's about 5 years at this point now, as an entrepreneur.
I love that. I love that. I'm still a baby in the entrepreneur space. I'm 2 years in, 2 years in.
Yeah.
So I kind of, well, I'll tell you about that in a second. Well, okay, so I'm a former traditional educator, right? So I taught physical education for 8 years. And then I moved out here to Dubai at the time, and I taught here for 3 years when I caught the creative bug. I've always been creative, always been nitpicking with technology, but coming here, having my rent paid for, having more money to do other things, I invested in a ton of equipment, right? And asked the school that I was at if I can do little, projects here, make videos. I would. They gave me a little stipend at one point in time, and I asked if I could transition to more full-time content creation for them. Made a little job description, everything. They said no. So I decided not to re-sign my contract, but I still wanted to remain out here. So I have a freelance license that allows me to stay in the country, and then figuring everything out from then. So my question to you is that you've been doing this for 5 years.
Yes. 5 years in July.
Congratulations, right? The question, the crux of the matter, because I'm speaking to you right now, but the listener, you're welcome. The crux of the matter is the money. Entrepreneurship is being able to do what, quote unquote, you say you love or you like or whatnot. But life goes on. You have bills, you have responsibilities or whatever. What have you learned about the money situation? How you've been able to say, this is how much my household needs. This is how I'm, getting clients. But what has been able to sustain you through that learning period and as established entrepreneur?
To be honest, it's something that I feel like I'm learning every single day. Like, you have, of course, your base. Like, okay, I know it costs this much for my mortgage. It costs this much for my car. And I will say my husband supports me through this process, right? So it's not just me alone. And he's an entrepreneur as well, which is even crazier because most people I know, one person working full time and the other person's an entrepreneur. So we out here just thugging it. But we know what our bills are and we budget accordingly. So usually when I first started, I wasn't charging enough at all. And I realized that really quickly. Like if I'm gonna pay big girl bills, I need to be charging people for the work that I'm doing. And I think what usually messes up entrepreneurs when they're first starting out is like they really don't understand their value in the marketplace. And so you're scared to like charge more. It's like, how can I charge this much? Or I wouldn't pay this much. Like, why would someone else pay this? And it's like, it's not about what you would pay for it. It's about the value for someone else when they're purchasing your service or product. So that's what I learned real quick. I had to raise my prices. And then the second thing for me was like making sure I'm budgeting. So I keep like an Excel spreadsheet, really old school with it, have all of my income coming in. I basically track that as well as like all my bills, and I make sure I keep it at a certain level.
I need to be more disciplined in that area. But because you live and you learn. What type of entrepreneur is your husband, or what does your husband do?
He's a DJ, which is like, yeah, it's like really up and down in his industry. The summer and spring months, we're noticing, of course, it's like more. He gets more. There's a higher demand for him, and in the winter, it's like slower. So usually he'll pick up like a side job or something like that to sustain himself during low seasons.
That's awesome. And yeah, for sure. So can you walk us through? Well, I'm on a journey right now where I'm kind of restructuring my business and the services that I offer. I ran across this video, which I'll send to you after we complete here. But pretty much the concept is productizing your services. So in a sense, it's like niching down on what you're really good at and leaving everything else by the wayside. So for instance, your husband, he's a DJ. It's like if he loved to cook and he's a DJ, are you a caterer or are you a DJ? Which one you gonna do? Right? And being able to offer a specific service. So I'd be interested to know what services, oh bless you, what services do you offer and how did you decide on, because I feel like we're all very capable of various different things, but at some point in time you need to decide on these 2 or 3 things instead of trying to offer 18. So how did you narrow down what you wanted to do and what do you currently offer today?
Great question. And it's so funny that you asked this because I struggled with this for a very, very long time. I would say within the last 2 years is when I actually started really honing in because I had a passion specifically for social media. And I'm like, okay, how do I enjoy doing social media content creation and podcasting as well. So I felt like it was a good marriage in between. Like you have to promote your podcast. How do you do it? And recently I was just like, okay, I noticed where the money was coming in. So I was like, okay, there is a larger market for people that want to start podcasts, 1. And 2, people that come to me for podcasting, usually their next pain point is social media. So I end up picking it up on the back end versus trying to do everything, basically. So I do some of the scheduling for podcasters, but we're not doing like engagement and full on social media management services. So we picked and choose.
Which is key. Yeah. Because there's so many differences, because I also have or had a package that included social media management, but I was very specific. Like for all the listeners that offer products and services, you have to be very specific on what you say that you're going to do and what you can deliver on. And for me, social media is so interesting that it was like, what I'm going to do for you is I'm going to create the post for you. I'm going to post them for you. I'm going to press that heart when somebody comments. I might even say a little something, but that's all I'm saying. I'm not promising that your channel's going to grow. All I'm doing is making you be consistent. That is it. Whatever the results are from that, hallelujah, amen. But like, I'm not finna answer your DMs because we know DMs are dangerous. But I think it's crucial that especially when it comes to social media, that your quote unquote promise is very just almost general and straightforward, so that there's not any false expectations.
Right. For sure. And I think that's the piece where when you're taking on a new client and they're like, okay, social media management, so everything, right? I love a good scope of work. I write everything down in that scope of work. This is what I'm doing for you. If I want to add in an extra service, it's usually something that's like really easy for me and it flows. And not something I have to like essentially hire somebody for or be another person, like have a whole nother person on the team to offer the service. So I think that was the biggest thing is like, we're trying to wear so many hats, and as an entrepreneur, you will, but what flows the easiest, what's like something you're already touching, but if it requires a whole another person to execute the project, then you might not want to offer it as a service unless you can get that other person on your team.
But then you also have to be realistic that, and honestly, that came to light maybe a month or two ago for me, especially when it came to writing proposals and things like that for different projects. And it came to mind that I can do a lot of things, but certain things need a team. And I was creating proposals as Abby, all and end all be all. And it was like, no, this is like a 4-person job.
Yes.
You need to charge for the 4 people in the event that you do want to hire somebody out to help you out. And that's when I realized the power of charging accordingly and then also reaching out for additional assistance. So yeah, if you are going to do it yourself, it doesn't really matter, but you need to itemize it in the event that you need to have another person with you. And then I also made the mistake of trying to itemize it as the additional person, but putting the price that I would pay the person instead of what I would charge if it was me. So I undercut myself severely, right? To be just like, oh no, I ain't paying you this. I'm gonna pay you this. And then it was me that was getting paid, and I was like, lesson learned.
Yes. That's look, I'm really this within the last year as well. I picked up an assistant, a virtual assistant, and an editor. Changed my life. Like 90 days. There's a lot of stress that I was going through. Like, never do that again. If you have a certificate, you got to get one. Everybody needs a BA.
I'm about to say, I have a virtual content assistant, and it definitely has been a game changer for me. I'd like to ask you about, even before that, how do you maintain that work-life balance? Because I feel like as an entrepreneur, especially within like this digital space, that we are bombarded by so many other things and potentials and things that we can learn and events that we can participate in or attend. How do you establish those boundaries for yourself, being a person, a wife, and a mother, and an entrepreneur?
That like is something again that is a work in progress every single day. Some of the things that I talk about with like family and friends is like the struggle of like mom guilt. Like, am I around enough? Am I like doing all of the things to show them how much I love them and appreciate their existence? And I think it's about being very focused and setting aside the time, being very intentional is the word I'm thinking about. Being very intentional about the time that you spend with family, the time that you spend with yourself, the time that you're working. So I'm doing a lot better with time blocking on my calendar, setting aside a day to like just kind of reflect Um, and I think that's my biggest thing. I will give to my business, to my family, my husband, children, and won't give back to myself. So I'm working on like, okay, girl, like at 9 o'clock, shut off everything and go and take a bath, or like go read a book or something. Listen to music in your room really loud and dance. Like do something that's for you. And I think I've been doing a lot better with that, even with doctor's visits and stuff. It's been a journey. I'm still working on it, working through it.
But I mean, it's great for you to realize that, and it is in that realization that it creates the change that you need, and also, for your family. Like for me as well, like my roommate does a pretty decent job of trying to make me like plan and stuff, write stuff down or whatnot, and she has this interesting just format that she follows, and it's just like, what's your goals for the month? And one of them was for me to find like a tech-free hobby. I'm on the computer all day, pretty much, and thankfully found the opportunity to go and like play basketball again. And so now that's like my tech free. I might sweat and I'm actually very, very sore right now, to the point of tears. But I was like, it's a couple hours a week. I get to have to sweat, run, and get yelled at, but I'm not on my computer. But it's the me time, right? So I think that's amazing for you, and the time to be able to reflect, to remember. I tell people often, especially like my busy bee friends, to be like, hey, don't forget to be human. Like,
we are not robots.
And
I like to think that for the longest, I like to think that I want that. Once you hit like your 30s, though, I feel like your body will tell you real quick that you're not a robot. Slow your butt down. And I think that is the piece, even with rest. There's such a like, there's this, especially in the States, it's work, like sleep after you're dead, all these things. And it's just not conducive to real life. Like where? I don't know if you've seen that reel where it's like, wake up, don't drink no water. Make sure you go to Abu Dhabi and come back. Have you seen that reel?
I haven't seen that one.
I gotta send it to you. Like it's not realistic. It's not.
And so another journey before we segue, because I appreciate your time already. Another like thought process that I've had, especially being an entrepreneur, we understand that we need to make money to control ourselves and blah blah blah. But it's also being realistic about what you need and setting goals and things like that. And I think that we are in a hustle mentality. Reach for the stars, go hard, get the bag,
right?
All this other stuff, get more and more and more, get $20,000 a month and all this other stuff. And I've been at a point right now where I have 2.5 clients and I make decent money from it. And I was like, I get to have these 2.5 clients and I still get to go play basketball. And I still can make dinner every night. And I can still watch a movie and take a nap in the middle of the day, right?
Hey. Oh, that's that no kids life.
I'm sorry. Absolutely. I love kids, and I'm just not in that space in my life at the moment, right? Yeah. So I was like, I could still take a nap in the middle. Even today, I was like, I don't know how people do it. But I feel like having an idea of what you need, being able to meet those expectations and, exceed them as necessary, that is completely fine to be an entrepreneur. And not only live within your means, but earn a meaningful means that doesn't drive you crazy.
Right.
But what is the point of having all this demand, having all this money that you can't spend because the demand is too high?
That part. And people tell you that you need to be doing more, or why aren't you doing this, that, and the other? And you have to do what makes you happy. And turn off social media sometimes, and then, you and I are around very influential, hardworking people. And sometimes we're like, dang, well, I know I want that, or I want to be able to do that. And you look, it's like, okay, well, you kind of, it's like what I talked about earlier, like you pick and choose the things that works for you and then, make it work. But um it, you just can't do everything. At least not at once. I know that's like the saying, like you could have it all. You can, just not right now. Just not right now.
You're not ready. It's okay. You may never be ready, but be happy where you're
Right.
at or strive to get a little bit closer. Listen, thank you so much for the time that we spent already. I don't think I prompted you for this, so my apologies. But I ask every guest to leave our listeners with 3 tips that you would give to somebody looking to be in a similar position as you, or kind of like 3 tips for whatever is on your heart that was inspired by the conversation.
3 tips. Let's see. If you're building a business and you have a family at home, I would say the first thing is to look at your business as another person or a baby, right? And prioritize your time accordingly. So it doesn't mean that your business is everything and you should spend all your time there. You want to make sure that you balance your time out. That's my first tip. My second tip is, I would say, when when you have a business, be sure to set aside money, like for a rainy day and some taxes, because those are the things that I think a lot of us forget about when we're first starting, because we're so excited about the money coming in, and we forget about that rainy day or the time when taxes come around and you got to pay Uncle Sam. So definitely do that. Set up an account specifically for that, your taxes and a rainy day. Third tip would be, say it, find time to turn off social media. Even though I understand that it may help you, bring in business, it may be entertaining, but I think sometimes people are so afraid of just hearing themselves and like sitting in silence with yourself. And that's when your best ideas will come. That's when your breakthrough comes, is when you sit in silence. So find time to just unplug. That's my third tip.
About you all are listening and run that back so you can make sure that you're doing it too. Listen, please tell us all of the places and spaces we can follow, find, support, work with you.
Yes. So you can follow me on Instagram, on my business page at Nya B Marketing. And if you're like, what Nya got going on, you want to see some kid stuff and of course podcast tips, you can follow me on Instagram at Nya Bianca. And if you're looking for podcast services, anything from production to monetization, go ahead and go to my website at Nya B Marketing and book a call with us. It's a free consultation.
Excellent. Listen, folks, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Modern Day Unicorns. If you are a unicorn yourself, I'd love to have a conversation with you. So please feel free to reach out. Thank you so much, Nya, for joining us today. And we'll speak to you all later.